Welcome to the podcast, Justin. It's a pleasure to have you on. Do you mind giving us a quick rundown of yourself and your background?
Yeah, Justin Saliman, serial entrepreneur and orthopedic surgeon by training. The first real venture-backed company that I started was in 2007, and it was a surgical device company called Orthopaedics, which made a device for placing circumferential stitches around meniscus tears, so for meniscus repair. That was venture backed in 2010 and bought by Smith and Nephew in 2019. Overlapping with that a little bit in 2016, I started OutcomeMD, which is software. Well, I mean, it's tech-enabled service basically, and a software as a service, but mostly it's a big data play that comes back and helps the clinicians and health systems make with their revenue.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. So, can you tell me a little bit about the journey of starting your first company, and a bit about that journey, some of the key challenges and lessons that you faced over that time?
I mean, that's a 4-hour podcast, but to be succinct, startups are filled with peaks and valleys of luck and bad luck and success and nightmares. But, perseverance is probably the key ingredient. You need a good idea and you need to have the right people around it. And then those people need to persevere because there are moments where everything looks like it's going to fall apart and you have to pivot and figure out how to stay on track or change track. That's the key to success, I think, with startups. And there's certainly been many challenges that have come before us with both companies. But if you weather the storm, there's often some really exciting things afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's a lot of detail we could go into, but we don't have the time for that today. So what about the journey of founding Outcome MD and then obviously where you guys are at today, company-wise, what your priorities are, where you're focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, when I was with Soterix, that first company, we did a multi-center study to prove the effectiveness of the technology on certain tear types. And we used these measures called patient-reported outcome measures, which is one of the main pieces of a good study, shows the patient experience and how it's improved in a more objective way. These are scored and validated measures from the medical literature, the way you would do a real clinical study. So I had this vision to evaluate every patient with the same rigor as a clinical study, and to do it in a way where the patient and the provider have a lot of benefit from doing it, and make it interesting to both. And ultimately, the data that comes out of it is a total game changer if you can get people to do it on a consistent and reliable basis. So, we went down the road of initially, we had lots of interesting concepts around, 5-star doctor are more likely to die. Actually, that's been proven. Most of the 5-star doctors have gamed the system somehow. And an objective outcome-based system would be much more interesting to patients. So that was one of the sort of directions we went in, and it's still there, but we're probably not going to go back to it. It's chicken or egg. So we'll probably not go back to it until we have the chicken to lay the egg. And now it's about, we've built a system that truly can capture the data of the patient experience in such a meaningful way that patients love it and providers love it, and really dialed in that experience. We should have made outcome management systems instead of electronic medical record systems 40 years ago when they started these things. Unfortunately, they went in the direction of electronic medical record systems, which are just not slick at improving people's results. We turn the electronic medical record system into an outcome management system and bring the patient and provider together. And the whole thing is informed by how symptomatic is this patient and what's their health-related quality of life as a result of their problems. And then can we watch that number change over time? And we've done a lot of proprietary work around that. We were fortunate enough to recently partner with some big data resellers. And now we're at the point where this data that's being accumulated can actually come back and help the provider in terms of monetary benefit. So this is how we change the world, I think, meaning like get it to be used like a stethoscope. It really should. We should be using patient-reported outcome measures on every single patient, like you do a physical exam or like you use a stethoscope, like you just part of the way you evaluate them and keep track of them. And the reason we don't is because it's not financially incentivized.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of those financial incentives that aren't entirely aligned to the patient outcomes in a real positive way. And it's, yeah, super interesting industry. Obviously, with your experience seeing a lot of different things there, what are some of the strategies that you've used to acquire customers and get people using your platform?
I mean, it depends on our business model. And as the business model changes, our techniques change. But yeah, we've done STRs and built sales forces and, gone traditional SaaS and tried to auto onboard and do all that stuff. I think this is in the sector that we're in, it's a little more high touch. And we want to help them win. And when they win big, and we win big. So this is one of those, it's not just here's a software, go use it. It's here's a software and let us help you succeed with it. And look how exciting it is when you do. That's sort of where we are.
Yeah, totally. And what are some of the plans for OutcomeMD over the next year or 3 years in terms of growth and any other strategic plans?
We plan to grow strategically. Yeah, I mean, I think we're it's just an exciting time because we finally have the product market fit that's really going to make this thing pop, and we have evidence of that early now. So I think the next year is going to be super exciting. We just got the CEO of my dreams on board. I'm the founder. I was a CEO for 8 years, and I'm passing the torch on. And this guy is just a dream come true. I mean,
amazing.
Yeah, when you find those types of people, it really makes a difference.
Totally. What was the reason for you stepping out of the CEO role?
Yeah, I mean, you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And I'm not great at hiring or firing or holding people accountable. I'm not an operator. When it was strictly vision and product development, like I love product and vision and evangelism, and I'm good at those things, and I'll continue to do those things. But once you have the business model figured out and it's time to scale, if you're not that person who is good at those things, it's smart to step out of the way. So it's in the best interest of the company, and I love the company, and it's such an exciting opportunity. Why not put it in the hands of the perfect person?
Totally. And how did you find the CEO to come on board? What did that look like? Did you go out and find him, or?
Most successful companies, I think most successful founders will tell you that you need all sorts of important things, and then you need luck. And fortunately, we were introduced to a company that is super forward thinking, and they had a senior employee there, executive, who saw what this could do and what it could be with his help, and was smart enough to massage his way into taking this over, which will help the company that he's coming from as well. So they're happy with it also. But it's tricky. So we didn't go it wasn't like through recruiters and headhunters, and we actually had somebody else in the CEO position. So this was too good of an opportunity to pass up. So I made this happen to get him, and he made it happen, obviously.
Totally. Over the course of your journey, is there one piece of advice that you received that really made a big positive impact or change in your journey? Or would there be one piece of advice that you could give to others in their journey?
Well, persevere. Persistence is everything. You got to be gritty, and you're going to have goods and bads, and you got to learn from your failures, and you're going to have failures. But mostly I would say just expect for everything to take 5 times as long and cost 5 times as much, and you'll probably be wrong by a factor of 10. It takes a long time, and these things are not as, you think it's like, oh, you can see it, and it's going to happen exactly like this. And it may, but it will not take that long, and it will not cost that much. It will be more and more. So that's probably the one thing that you just gotta, and if you're not comfortable with that, and if you don't want to take that risk, and if you're not willing to persevere, then don't bother. It's very rare that it's going to work out in a huge way with, on your first go. You gotta be ready to pivot.
Totally, yeah. I could imagine there's a lot of changes and moving parts. In terms of AI and health tech, how do you see that integrating and playing a role in patient outcomes?
I think what we're doing feeds it all. So there's a data gap in healthcare. We're not keeping track of the most valuable data that is possible is stuck in the patient's brain, right? What are their outcomes? Measured in a way that's objective. And what are their confounding factors? Something I call confounding factors, but things like adverse life events and stresses and social determinants of health and new injuries and patient compliance. And so we structure data around all those things so we can really get a digital twin, essentially. We have the electronic medical record. data, data from wearables. You bring it all in and you really have a good understanding of what's happening. And that is the key to successful AI. Because you take crap data and feed it through AI, you end up with maybe slightly less crappy data out, but it's still not great. The AI is dependent on the quality of the data that goes in. And if there's a large quantity and it's disparate and it's hard to manage, the AI can really do a good job with that, right? If you have a clean enough data lake, you almost don't even need AI, right? Just a good correlation algorithm and you can figure things out. Perfect is hard to achieve. But the closer to perfect you can get, and then you put that through as close to perfect as you can get, and then you put that through AI, and you cure disease. And literally, the patients get the best treatment the first time. The future of this is we're going to be able to, using OutcomeMD's system and the data and sprinkled with a little AI, you're going to be able to say, show me how patients phenotypically similar to the one sitting in front of me do on drug A versus drug B. And it will look through and see all the other 35-year-old females with Crohn's disease and whatever else on these 4 medicines and which one worked the best for them, right? And then you can say, well, you're the most similar to this group, and we're going to put you on that medicine because it's going to work the best. We're also going to have better drugs and better devices because it'll be easier to do studies. Right now, it's really hard. It's too much risk and too expensive. So, there's a fraction of what we could be having in terms of productivity. And then at the same time, the data makes a capitalistic healthcare system work. If doctors were paid based on their results, that's when you get a capitalistic healthcare system to be the absolute best in the world. But again, it all comes down to data, and we're missing it. It's stuck in the patient's brain still. I mean, look around, there's patients everywhere. There's results everywhere. We just don't keep track of any of them. Literally, unless they're enrolled in an FDA study or clinical trial, no one's keeping track of that result, which is crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah, because there's no one size fits all solution. It can be quite subjective. What do you think is the biggest challenges in healthcare today?
I mean, it depends on in what way are you asking. Like, what's the biggest challenge to the health system? What's the biggest challenge to the American healthcare system? What's the biggest? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, if you ask me selfishly, I think the biggest problem is that we don't keep track of the results. And if we did, so many of the things that are problematic would go away. And if you're a believer in value-based care, that's all about dialing in best practices. And the key to dialing in best practices is being able to know what works and what doesn't work so that patients can get the best treatment the first time, which is in the best interest of the insurance companies because they have fewer costs. Certainly in the best interest of the patient to not have to try 6 drugs before you find the right one or have 3 failed surgeries before you get the right one done, right? And it's in the best interest of the clinicians too in many ways. And so I really think this is what we're doing is the key to healthcare in America and maybe the world going to the next level.
Totally. And how are you getting OutcomeMD out into the market? Is it just US based at the moment, or are you also expanding into overseas countries, or what's the kind of plan?
Well, we are open to other countries, and there's been some opportunities that we're playing with. But right now, we're just domestic, and we're high trust certified. It makes it easier to stay domestic. From privacy policies are very different in other countries, but it's all overcomable. So if there were an opportunity in another country, and if it was a good enough opportunity, we would just comply with their policies and put a server on their ground or do whatever we have to do and go for it. But right now, there's a big enough market in the States for what we're doing that we're here. So unless there's an opportunity that's obvious elsewhere, we'll probably stick around.
Sure. And in terms of where you sit in the market, is there any other direct competitors doing similar work to you, or are you?
I mean, there's other companies that are tracking patient-reported outcome measures, and they're pretty much trying to satisfy that regulation and save the doctors a little bit of money on MIPS here or on, something in orthopedics in particular. There's different mandates for joint replacements to be measuring things. So there's lots of companies that are like, oh, we'll help you satisfy this mandate. But all of them, in my opinion, are a little bit of a struggle and a slog. There's some companies that are specific to certain specialties. We work across every single specialty. No one has our model. No one has our software that gives this experience enhancer to the provider and patient. And then the way that we monetize this for the providers is totally unique.
How do you build trust with healthcare professionals, companies, and doctors when selling this solution?
You just hire good people who are able to explain things clearly and stick with them. Don't just like turn them on and abandon them. And the way that works best when everyone's incentivized, and when our customers win, we win. If they're making money, we're making money. So we are there to make sure that we can help them in every capacity.
Totally. And when you're in the sales process, what does it look like in terms of how you're presenting OutcomeMD? Is it more around the patient outcomes, or is it also or mainly focus on the monetary outcomes for those healthcare organizations? How is that sales conversation? Obviously, it can be adapted for each person, what their interests are, but
I mean, everyone's interested in the same thing for the most part, and that is everyone wants to enhance the patient experience. Everyone wants providers to have tools that help them do their job, that don't add workload, but make them more effective. And everybody wants to make money. So, we sort of focus on those three things, and they all come together, and it's a what's in it for me for everyone.
Totally. Do you think that there's much, unethical practice going on in terms of health tech companies selling the wrong solution or outcome? Do you think there's much of that in the market?
I don't know that I've seen don't have a lot of experience with unethical stuff. I think that certainly in the consumerism side of things, it's all gamed, which I was talking about earlier. So for example, if you leave a doctor's office and get one of those things that says, well, how satisfied were you with their care? There's lots of companies that offer the ability for you to instantly send that through integrations with the medical record to the patients when they're leaving your office. And if they click 5 stars, it pushes it to Google reviews. And if you click 4 stars or less, it's internal feedback. So what happens to the Google review scores? They go way through the roof, right? Is that unethical? I mean, as long as patients realize that, and the other thing is, seeing a doctor is not a subjective experience. It should be an objective experience. You either get better or you don't, right? And it's nice to have a good bedside manner, and probably doctors with a good bedside manner are better at communicating and get better outcomes. But in the end, it's the outcome is everything, right? But if a narcotic addicted patient comes in and sees a doctor, like an orthopedic surgeon, for example, and let's say I don't give them that narcotic prescription because I believe they're addicted, they will go crush me online. And it will look like I'm a bad doctor because they won't say it's because I wouldn't give them narcotics, right? So, patients kind of have the doctors captive, and what's resulted in we actually patient cater. We don't patient care. So it's like you have to kind of angle this so that you're going to have a satisfied patient. And I don't know why the system has adopted satisfaction. We're not a restaurant, right? Yelp is great for restaurants, but it's pretty toxic for doctors. And it's created this culture of satisfaction, catering, not care. And there's many studies on this. There's papers written on this. There's one called The Cost of Satisfaction. If you just Google those words, it comes up. I think it was in JAMA or something. It was in a big journal. And it showed that 5-star doctors are more likely to die. So in terms of unethical, I think a lot of the way things are working right now is ridiculous. Whether it's unethical or not, I don't know. But what we should really, and if we had the data to be able to do this the right way, I don't think that we would need to do it this way anymore.
Totally. So obviously, I think you're thinking OutcomeMD is going to be probably one of the biggest positive changes that can come into the healthcare industry as a whole, because there's nothing like it really at the moment. And so obviously expanding. So you obviously tell us about you bootstrapped, or you've got funding, or any plans to get more funding, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, we're funded, but we're always raising, right? So we have plenty of money in the bank, and we have revenue, and we're moving along. And I think this year is going to be ridiculously sloped in terms of our growth. And then we'll raise more money at a great valuation, and that will probably and hopefully may or may not be the last money we raise. Sometimes if you're growing quickly, you want to continue to grow quickly and even more quickly. You raise more money, and it's worth it. So you just do the math on the dilution. So we will see. But, I think I'm not worried about raising money as we go, as long as we're growing and successful and the model's stable and there's no house of cards, we're going to win. And we're going to win for the betterment of all.
Totally. Justin, awesome to have you on the podcast today, and I appreciate your time. If people want to get in touch with you or connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so OutcomeMD.com is a good place to start. And my email is jsaliman@OutcomeMD.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Yep, thank you. Take care.